The National News Desk, locally covered. Nationally connected. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. We begin with breaking news. The prime suspect in the assassination of Charlie Kirk is charged with aggravated murder, and prosecutors will seek the death penalty. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson just appearing in court for the first time after being arrested. Here's a breakdown of the other charges announced today, which also include felony discharging of a weapon and firearm, obstruction of justice. On the ground for us tonight.
Yes, Tyler Robinson made his first court appearance harming himself. Now, during this hearing that just took place, the judge read him the charges. Robinson spoke only to say his name. He sat there stoic most of the time, for the remainder of the time, I should say, only occasionally nodding his head. The judge did find him indigent and ordered that counsel be appointed for him. Also, they set his next court appearance for September 29th that morning. Now, earlier today, the official charging documents, as we mentioned, were filed. During a press conference, Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray read a text exchange between
roommate. Why? Robinson. Why did I do it? Roommate. Yeah. Robinson. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate. How long have you been planning this? Robinson. A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson again. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle.
Yeah, so just again, from that exchange, we note that he told this roommate he'd been planning this attack for about a week and had intentions to pick up that weapon, but because of the law enforcement presence there surrounding UVU at the time, decided ultimately not to.
Yeah, a lot of new information today. Ariel, what else stood out to you from those charging documents?
Well, we learned about some of the immediate response to identify a suspect just following that shooting. According to Gray, who we just heard from, an officer who had an elevated viewpoint there at this event on Wednesday where Kirk was shot, he heard the gunfire and immediately identified that it sounded like a rifle and began immediately looking for sniper positions. He identified a building, went to the rooftop on top of that building and saw that gravel on top of the rooftop had been displaced almost where a sniper could have been in the shooting prone position, or a sniper prone position, I should say. So that was an interesting thing that was also shared in this presser. We also learned that his mother was actually the family member that recognized him from photo and video surveillance that had been released, and that he had told his parents he was suicidal, but obviously determined to ultimately turn himself in. Reporting from Utah, I'm Ariel Harrison. Back to you.
Ariel Harrison, boots on the ground, thank you so much for your coverage. Well, new bombshell information revealed today about the prosecution against Tyler Robinson during an annual FBI hearing before Senate. FBI Director Kash Patel says they believe a broader network potentially had some prior knowledge of the accused shooter's plans.
Unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in.
And Patel says the FBI is investigating all who participated in the Discord thread as they look into Robinson's digital footprint leading up to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Senator Josh Hawley, asked Patel how many people took part in that chat.
I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
The Washington Post reports that people familiar with Robinson's Discord chat say he wrote a message on Thursday confessing to the assassination, saying in part, quote, "It was me at UVU yesterday." The Discord platform now facing major scrutiny and investigation after a company spokesperson initially claimed it had not uncovered evidence Robinson used the platform to plan or promote violence. In other news now, we are learning the Evergreen high school shooter hinted at his plans online, according to the Anti-Defamation League. In a report released by the league, the 16-year-old posted a photo on X of a revolver and box of ammunition 2 hours before he shot and wounded 2 students and then fatally turned the gun on himself at his Colorado high school last Wednesday. The ADL also says, according to their research, the shooter was active on a violent gore site that several school shooters in the past year have also been active on. And in the wake of the assassination of political activist Charlie Kirk, members of both parties are pointing to social media algorithms as a place making so many Americans angry and divided. National correspondent Matt Galka has the story.
In the hours after suspected Charlie Kirk shooter Tyler Robinson was taken into custody, Utah's governor didn't mince words when talking about the role he believes social media played.
Social media is a cancer on our society right now.
He doubled down over the weekend.
Cancer probably isn't a strong enough word. What we have done, especially to our kids, it took us a decade to realize how evil these algorithms are.
The president also believed the internet played a role in the suspected shooter's life.
It seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet, and it's radicalized on the left.
But social media algorithms don't follow a political ideology. The goal is just to keep people glued to screens and scrolling.
Do you believe that social media is one of the instruments radicalizing America and inciting violence?
Well, it's not. My belief is based on the data, and the data shows that social media is wildly out of control.
The internet is an accelerant. It is driving extremism in our country. It's driving us apart, left and right.
The social media algorithm is meant to keep the user hooked or engaged by usually feeding content that's either solidifying someone's beliefs or making them angry. Notre Dame computer science professor Tim Weniger says the outrage cycle is by design to make money.
Social media, they sell more ads and they make more money if people are engaged, and people are more engaged when they're angry.
Is it healthy to keep people this angry, and where does the government come in here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think so. I think that there's roles for the government to play, but I wouldn't call for restrictions in speech or censorship. I think that there's ways you can regulate the algorithm itself without regulating speech.
Utah has attempted to enact laws that regulate social media with things like age verification and allowing parents to sue for harm to minors. They faced multiple legal challenges claiming First Amendment violations.
So, Matt, is there any action being taken on Capitol Hill to, regulate social media?
Well, the FCC isn't endorsing the idea of a social media crackdown just yet, but Senator Lindsey Graham, who we just heard from in that story, called for a repeal of Section 230, a part of the Communications Decency Act that prevents social media companies from getting sued over potential harm caused by what users post.
In Washington, D.C., Matt Galka, thank you. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump are now in England, landing a short while ago. Tomorrow afternoon, the two of them will visit Windsor Castle. They'll arrive by horse-drawn carriages, met with full military honor guards. And the president will meet and dine with King Charles III. Then Thursday, President Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer will have a bilateral meeting. The White House says these talks will strengthen relations, ideally, between the countries. And before leaving for England this morning, the president was asked about the strike against narco-terrorists from Venezuela yesterday and confirmed the military action against drug trafficking has been more extensive than reported.
Stop sending Tren de Aragua into the United States. Stop sending drugs into the United States. We knocked off actually 3 boats, not 2, but you saw 2. And the problem is there are very few boats out in the water.
President Trump also addressed rising crime across the country and once again threatened to go into Chicago to fix crime, calling the city a death trap.
If they lose less than 6 or 7 people a week with murder, they're doing a great job in their opinion. Chicago is a death trap, and I'm going to make it just like I did with D.C., just like I'll do with Memphis. Now,
Trump claims in just the last week, 11 people were killed and 38 others were shot. He takes aim at Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, saying if he were smart, he'd want help from the federal government. Lawmakers in Illinois, of course, are pushing back against President Trump trying to militarize the region. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson writing on X, Trump's Band-Aid solutions won't solve violent crime. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is defending the Trump administration's Operation Midway Blitz, an expansion of ICE resources in Chicago that began last week. Noem posted this video on X saying she was in the city today and the department's work is only beginning. She said just this morning people were arrested for assault, DUI, and felony stalking. And immigration law enforcement is ramping up in other sanctuary cities, including in Boston. The Associated Press reports people there are seeing more and more unmarked ICE vehicles targeting work vans in migrant communities. Trump critics say people are afraid to leave their homes and claim ICE agents are going beyond just targeting illegal aliens. Luigi Manion is back in court, and 2 New York State terrorist charges against him were dismissed. The 27-year-old charged with gunning down United Healthcare CEO last year still faces the charge of murder in the 2nd degree, as well as 8 weapons-related charges in the state case. Manion could face life in prison for the state murder charge. The federal murder charge he's also facing could mean the death penalty. Manion is due in state court December 1st, days before he's due in federal court. He pleads not guilty. Academy Award-winning actor and director Robert Redford has died at the age of 89. His publicist says he died in his Utah home Tuesday morning, surrounded by loved ones. Redford shot into stardom in classics like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the acclaimed 1976 film All the President's Men, about the breaking of the Watergate story, which was nominated for 8 Oscars and won 4. No details were provided yet on the circumstances surrounding his death. Redford was also the founder of the Sundance Institute. Still ahead, tropical trouble, the next named storm that could form in less than 48 hours. The latest forecast and the location of a second disturbance we're tracking. Then a concerning drop in credit scores. A look at borrowing now versus during the Great Recession. Plus, Charlie Kirk's influence is only increasing. How much of his following has grown? Plus, what the Pope had to say about his death. We're back in 90 seconds. peak of hurricane season passed last week without any action in the Atlantic Ocean, but now the next possible named storm is approaching the Caribbean islands with a strong possibility of strengthening within the next few days. The National Hurricane Center says this disturbance has a greater than 90% chance of organizing into at least a tropical storm within 48 hours. It would be named Gabrielle. For now, it is predicted to remain away from land. Of course, we will continue to closely follow its progression. And there's also a second disturbance in the Atlantic Ocean right off the coast of West Africa. Right now, this tropical wave only has a 20% chance of forming. Credit scores are dropping at their fastest rate in nearly 20 years. The national average FICO score fell 2 points this year, the largest drop since 2009. And now a growing number of borrowers are falling behind on car loans, credit cards, even personal loans. But despite falling scores for a second year in a row, overall FICO scores remain higher than they were during the Great Recession. And meanwhile, Americans continue to buy despite worries about fluctuating tariffs as retail sales in August were up 0.6% over July numbers, supported by back-to-school purchases. The Commerce Department says spending increased across many venues. Brick-and-mortar businesses saw a 0.3% increase, online shopping up 0.2%, and restaurants saw a 0.7% increase in August. Well, the White House says they plan to appeal to the Supreme Court after an appeals court ruling rejected President Trump's attempt to fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. In a 2-to-1 decision yesterday, the court decided that Cook is entitled to some kind of process before her removal. Because of the ruling, Lisa Cook was able to attend today's Federal Reserve meeting to discuss national interest rates. Now, also at the Fed meeting today, President Trump's nominee, Stephen Miron, was sworn in as the newest member of the Board of Governors. Miron, confirmed by the Senate last night along party lines, will take a leave of absence as the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors at the White House for the rest of the year. This as he finishes his term on the Fed board. And it is expected that Chairman Jerome Powell will announce a rate cut tomorrow, something President Trump has long been calling for since he began his second term. The Israeli military has begun a ground offensive in Gaza City. Israel Defense Forces confirms its expanded operation started overnight Monday. Now, some Palestinian residents reported heavy strikes across the city. A warning was issued for residents to leave and head south. According to a local hospital, at least 69 Palestinians were killed. This comes the same day an independent United Nations inquiry concluded that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Israel fiercely rejects the report, calling it distorted and false. Secretary of State Marco Rubio continues a visit to the Middle East in Qatar today, meeting with the country's emir. Rubio's goal is to encourage Qatar to stay engaged and help stop the war between Israel and Hamas. Qatar has been a key mediator between the two, but Israel's recent airstrike on Doha put tension on its relations with Israel. En route to Doha, Rubio shared the message he later shared with Qatar.
We want them to know how much we appreciate and respect all the time and work and effort they put in the past to these negotiations, and we hope they'll re-engage despite everything that's happened.
The secretary says the Trump administration wants an immediate end to the conflict, all hostages freed, and for Hamas to be dismantled. Live now to downtown St. Paul, the capital of Minnesota, where the balance of power in the State House is on the line today in a special election. Voters outside of Minneapolis are headed to the polls right now to vote on the successor to slain Democratic Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman. Hortman, as you may remember, was killed at her home June 14th alongside her husband when a gunman dressed as a policeman rang her doorbell and shot the couple. Democratic candidate XP Lee is expected to defeat his Republican opponent, Ruth Bittner. This would bring the Minnesota House back to a 67-67 deadlock. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Florida, where a sheriff is concerned about a recent gun law ruling.
I'm not upset about the law. I just want to make sure everybody understands what the law entails.
Until now, openly carrying a gun around in public in Florida was against the law. Now, based on a recent court ruling, it's legal to walk around in a public place and openly carry. Martin County Sheriff John Budenseek says not only can people in Florida now openly carry a handgun, but they can also openly carry a shotgun or rifle in public.
It's the knuckleheads. It's the very few knuckleheads out there that are going to do something to give them a bad name that I'm worried about.
Another product that some say contains a forever chemical could soon be off the market for people in California. Late Friday evening, the California State Assembly narrowly approved Senate Bill 682, which supporters say bans cookware with 2 forever chemicals, or PFAS, from being sold in the state.
An example of an unnecessary use of PFAS is a nonstick cookware, which involves the use of the fluoropolymer PTFE, better known as Teflon. Despite claims that fluoropolymers are safe, these PFAS are problematic throughout their entire life cycle.
The president of the Cookware Sustainability Alliance, Steve Burns, understands concerns with forever chemicals, but he says the science behind the chemical simply known as Teflon doesn't show it to be harmful with pans.
An individual who was scribing their initials, 3 letters, into the side of this bronze plaque with a pocket knife. The Good Samaritan waited for a good time to snap a photograph with their phone.
Taking it in plain sight, it was a Gettysburg Park goer who police say heard scratching and scribbling noises. Park officials posted the suspect on Facebook, who they claim is a Caucasian male with short dark hair and a beard, and believe he is responsible for the damage inside the 44th New York Infantry Monument. The Gettysburg National Park officials wasted no time to contact local authorities to identify who defaced the monument, even though there are cameras and officers who patrol the site. But it takes more to solve this case, and they are hoping this image will be seen by the right people.
The legacy and movement of Charlie Kirk soaring within the last few days. Coming up, how many have reached out to Turning Point USA to become a member and bring a chapter to their campus. Leo XIV has been praying for assassinated political activist Charlie Kirk and his family, according to the Vatican. The Pope talked to the U.S. ambassador to the Holy See, who said the Pope is concerned about political violence. The Pope also said it's important to avoid rhetoric that leads to polarization instead of dialogue. Well, since the assassination of political activist Charlie Kirk, the youth movement and his legacy only continues to grow. Turning Point USA says thousands of inquiries are being submitted for campus chapters. Plus, Kirk's social media gaining millions of new followers. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris reports.
Let's start with Turning Point USA, which Kirk founded. The organization saying this weekend, just within the last 48 to 72 hours, it's received over 32,000 messages from those expressing interest in starting new chapters. On Sunday, Turning Point spokesman Andrew Colvett taking to X, sharing how many inquiries the organization, which advocates for conservative politics, has received. Writing the messages are a massive step closer to accomplishing Kirk's goal. The influx in interest could be a result of the powerful message delivered by Kirk's widow Erica Friday night. Addressing the nation, she vowed to keep the fight alive.
The movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen.
President Trump also speaking out Sunday, attributing part of his rise in the youth vote in 2024 to Kirk's efforts.
I got numbers that nobody's ever even come close to in the Republican Party. Some was attributed to TikTok, and a lot was attributed to Charlie.
ABC News exit polling shows Trump performed better with voters under 30 than any Republican presidential candidate since 2004, winning 43% of the vote. Kirk himself speaking about the jump in youth vote while talking with California Governor Gavin Newsom in March.
We believe Democrats were taking them for granted. We think that your side had no message whatsoever and an ideological monopoly. We saw some of the fault lines there.
In addition to movement growth, Kirk's legacy also rapidly growing. His social media pages gaining millions of followers over the last few days. Instagram now at 12.3 million from 6.9 September 9th. TikTok up to 9.4 million from 7.3. And his personal YouTube page nearly 4.9 million from 3.8. Now, ABC News exit polling also revealing President Trump drew even with former Vice President Kamala Harris with men under 30 in the 2024 presidential election. Trump improving 8 points compared to 2020. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Coming up, what early signs of fall foliage means for the rest of the season right after this. To look more like fall, my favorite season, with trees showing early signs of color in states like Ohio. But I found this interesting. An arborist in Columbus says that means trees are actually stressed out. That city had its driest period on record over the last few weeks. Stressed trees shut down early to conserve water and nutrients. It makes the fall foliage less vibrant. Interesting. Thanks for joining us. I'm Taylor Murray.